You can't keep using tools of oppression and expect to raise free people.
Like, I'm tingly all up here because that is so true. And it's like, it's so true. This is the work and the resolve. Because
exactly.
Like 2011, whenever we wrote the book, 2012,
2012, yep, 2012, yes, which is the first year that we started fully unschooling, like understand. Yeah. So there's that.
It is that. In 2012, when we were writing the book, I was in a place where I felt this, like, I felt free. Like I felt this this burning of freedom, of liberation. Is like, it's in me, it's a part of me, it is me, it cannot be me. I know all the pieces and components to it, but I was hoping for it to actually be able to live it. And because I knew that I wasn't fully living it, but I knew what needed to be done. That is just like this weird thing. It's like, how do you know something that you haven't fully yet lived? And it's like, I don't know how I know. I just know that this is what freedom is, and this is how you get there. God, it's like we had the roadmap already, like, etched in our DNA.
Yes.
And we just like, we knew, and we was like, oh shoot, this is the map.
Yeah.
And we drew that map.
Yes. And then lived into it.
And lived into it.
Because our lives didn't make that easy or like aligned. Our lives were messy. We had to stay aligned with, and not messy in a bad way, but just messy in that it's not going to be like, you're not going to be able to follow some map for the shit, right?
Exactly.
But there was so much of us living into that, putting things forward to say, I can't be with it now. I don't even know what I'm talking about right now in this part, in terms of, not that I don't get it, but I don't even know exactly how to fully embody it. I just know that that's what I deserve. I know that it's a thing that I can call upon, and it can work through me in lots of other ways. I like, we felt like we were already in some ways where we wanted to be, but we needed to, like, right? Because I feel like we talked about so much of that. That's why the versions.
Yes. We talked about it. In that day, in that space, I was still in a relationship with my kid's father. We were thinking about buying a house, and think we had just started the process of buying a house, but I was still really, like, uncomfortable with our relationship. I was happy, but I wasn't happy at the same time, as odd as that sounds. It was like I was happy in what I understood a relationship should be. So, like, he's kind, he's, all the good things, but we didn't have any passion in a relationship. I wasn't passionate about the relationship. I was passionate about being with my family and having this family and giving my children what I didn't have. And I was doing that. And then I'm like trying to figure out, what's up with my business. My business was doing good, but I was not content. I was like, this is not enough. I don't like it. It feels so hard. And, and when I met you is when I started to see that I didn't see a path. I just saw these bushes, this forest. Like, all of a sudden, like, this forest appeared, and I was just like, what's that? And then the forest was like, come.
Come, Katrina.
And I'm like, hey, I don't know what's in there. Like, what's that? I don't know. I'm scared. But it was like, come. And it was like, okay. And then it was just like, through our friendship building and us writing that book, it was like the book became like a machete. It was just like, oh,
that's what we were talking about, Harriet and Nanny. You remember that? Exactly. And that just came back up in a course that I did a thing in not even a week ago, last Sunday, actually. Last Sunday, talking about Nanny and Harriet. And that was totally our thing. Just that same thing you said with the machete and the bushes. Same. We were talking about that back then too. Like, do you feel like and then one of us gonna be like right here to be like, yo, get out. And then the other person gonna be like, bet, now that you're over here, this is the direction this guy gonna give you, right?
Yes, that's exactly. that same energy was just with us.
Yeah.
And it's like, we didn't part ways.
Mm-mm.
We just kept going through our forest with our machetes, and you Nanny and I'm Harriet, and we just like going through that motherfucker, like just whacking shit, and like I don't know where I'm going, and then you know, eventually you get to a clearing, and like you said, here's somebody that's saying, all right, here, you need this,
yes,
here, you need that.
yes.
And it's like, and in every stage you just feel a little bit like, wait a minute, I'm good, like I got this. And yes,
I love that. Oh, this is coming up at so much the right time, because that's really, first of all, that's how you are. Like it wasn't like you got like that for the project of the book. That's how you are, and how I am is how I am. We put that in the book, which is why for me, when you said, oh, I want to do How She Got Free as a podcast, I'm like, that makes so much sense. And I didn't even realize the level of yes in it until what I just said to you now, to realize, well, of course you should, because the podcast is about you as you being loud, being clear, doing your shedding and sorting, using your machete, and realizing, oh, at some points I could put it down. There's some berries over there that something in me knows these are good for me. Then I'm gonna mix these with that and actually make something where it's gonna heal all the things, that the blisters and cuts I got from chopping. Then I'm gonna meet somebody over there who's gonna be like, oh my God, you need different shoes for what you're doing. And then you're not even gonna need to chop in the same way, because you look back and there's a path and people and all of this stuff. And I feel like that's really what we'll be talking about as we share what's happening with How She Got Free, because you are in it. So we just gonna hear the different things you chopped down, what healed, what hurt. That's what this is.
Yeah. And so like, there's no end, right? There's just like maybe a clearing, a space where you feel like you've arrived to a place, but it's not the place. It's just a place where you feel like you can kind of like, whew, I can settle. And you know, you've, like your sweatshirt says, you know, you found a space of liberation. You found your community, you found your collective, you found that space, but you know, you still got to keep going, but but when you get to that place, you get there with like all of your wounds, that many that you've healed, and then others that you've like kind of collected along the way, but they're different type of wounds though. They're more like the wounds that come from really fighting for your own freedom. Mm-hmm. So therefore, like the healing of it feels more like, once you get to that place, you realize that like the healing of those wounds requires community now. Like you don't need, like you can't do this by yourself, you know, and it's like parts of it you got to do alone.
Yes.
But you got to have people around you that care, obviously, because you don't want to sink in. But some depths in your pain and in your discovery of yourself or your trueness, you got to go in that space by yourself. It's like you got to ugly cry. You got to be down, chat, like just you have to hit that reach that depth of like your own bottom to really know yourself, to really know like exactly all the pieces that you are. Like you got to know, and that's not a journey you can take with someone else as intimately as you can by yourself. Mm-hmm. In the sense of like, you know, no one can talk you out of that. They can only kind of like, you know, keep you from completely just shattering your life, because it is a dark place and it is scary. And if you don't have any support, it can lead you to, you know, a place of suicide. To be honest, it can lead you to that self-destructiveness. But once you get all that you needed to get out of that, and you walk through that journey, and you're patching up your wounds and you're healing, you find your own berries and salves, and you're just getting yourself all healed up. Then you get to that place, and then you see a community, and then it's like that community is like, we love you, and we know that you know who you are, but we know that there was so much trauma or whatever your fight to get here, that we know that this place you're not going to heal unless you, like, we are the key for this place, place, because now we are the place of like restoration in a sense. Like we're here to like be a part of your story now, that you hope that you wish you had from the beginning. You know, that place of finding that love, or finding that home that fits you, or finding that career
the thing that felt missing, the thing that felt missing. Yes. Yeah. And again, it's why I feel like it's so powerful that you're doing this from where you are now, because I happen to be behind the scenes and know a lot of the things that you're working on, but there's so much of the shine of what happens in the result. Yeah. Or there's like the trauma porn of really sinking in and highlighting the things that went wrong. Meanwhile, all of it matters. And so like when you talk about the depths of despair and your own bottom, these are some of the things you'll be talking about on How She Got Free, to talk about, you know, what did it mean to look at therapy from a very different space? What did it mean when you walked into that therapist's office for the first time? What did it mean to get a certain diagnosis? Like, why is it that something that seemed scary actually felt liberating? Like, how are you even redefining liberation now? We talked about getting free. So then when you get to that freedom, like, what is that walk, and a little bit of what it took to get there. And all of that is what you will be showing us, not just in terms of the narrative, but because of how you are and how you've always been, just like in How She Got Free, it's going to also have salves. Like, it's not just going to be, you know, gaping into the, you know, peering into gaping wounds. And it's also not like crossing our fingers and hoping that we make it out alive. It's like, no, here are the things that I've found. And me finding that not everything that I find is going to work for you, but the confidence in your realization that people like you find things all the time. Why not you? That is its own medicine. And sometimes exactly what I say going to work for you. And that's another medicine. So I'm so grateful that you were like, I have all these things in place, including a podcast, because it's such a powerful way for us to remember what liberation can mean in process, you know, not just in destination, in process.
In process, yes. You know, and I'm grateful for the podcast. I'm even more grateful that I get to do this with you.
Me
like
too.
Really. Because I tell everyone, I'm just like, you know, my podcast. And when I tell everybody about my little podcast, I be like, but it's not any little regular podcast. I'm really Raising Free People Network. Get into it. Like, I tell people,
like Kendall.
And I feel so good about it. It's like, I feel like, yes, you know, and to have my sister hold my hand in this process, it's just like, we are doing this together. It's my voice, but it's us. It's so like not me and me alone. It's us. And I even look forward to where this can go in terms of a platform of allowing other women or men to feel like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
I'm
exactly.
free too. now tell us about how you got free. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's this whole walk right there. That's this whole walk for any being who feels this. Cause I always felt like my podcast was for one group of people, but the energies transcend, which doesn't diminish who it's for. And in your case with How She Got Free, it's about liberation. It's showing up as who you are in your body that you live in the society that we live in, but it's energetic than a motherfucker. Like, you don't have to be a Black woman. You don't have to be a woman. You don't have to be in any binary to connect with like how you get down. Like, people know that already, but a lot more people will be able to get it now.
The main thing that I'm really, really, I want people to get out of this sharing that we're doing with this podcast is to really demystify, like, even more raw, like, mental health. You know, like, this isn't a mental health podcast, but we are going to talk about like the impact that a lot of, you know, our upbringing in this colonial society has really kind of wrapped itself around me, you know, me as representing a Black woman, growing up in, you know, that was impacted by all the things that Black folks are impacted by being in America, you know, like from in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like everything that went on, everything that's America. I embody all of that. Yes. From, you know, the crack era to like all of that stuff.
Yes.
And then like who that makes you. And then how you're like really trying to be like, but that ain't who I am. Like,
Yeah.
you want to fight, like that ain't it.
Constantly.
So I want to talk about depression because that was the diagnosis I got when I went to my doctor's office. And I was happy when I got that motherfucking diagnosis. Like, I was like, girl, thank you. I was just like, thank you. Because I thought I was crazy. Like, you know, and, you know, I thought I thought I was broken.
Yes.
And I realized like, well, I was fractured and it's okay. Like, it's okay. Cause now I have a word to use that I could like say, like, it's like having a phone. It's like, what is this? You know, this thing is going off every week. I don't know what this is, you know, and somebody say, oh, that's a smartphone. You could do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have it.
Yeah.
But it's not me. It's just like this thing. And talking about that and talking about the other piece of depression, like on that spectrum of like anxiety, you know, which is another, like, if you're not depressed, you might get some, you know, the anxiety is on that same spectrum.
Right. And it matters and it impacts how you can think and breathe and move. Yes.
Yeah. And then how that impacts the decisions we make. And we think I'm talking specifically Black women because I don't know any other type of woman intimately than Black women. So when we have that label of like strong Black woman, you know, and it's like, wait a minute, but I'm over here dealing with anxiety, like diagnosed, like with my doctor, like, girl, you got chronic anxiety. And it's like, well, why? How? And then I'm looking at my life and I'm like, doc, I feel fine. And I'll get more to this in the podcast, but my body is reacting. And I'm like, I'm sitting here like this.
So many of us can connect to that, right? Like talking to these professionals, and not that every professional is legit, but we know in this case, they know what they're saying, they know what they're seeing, they know the patterns. I remember a very similar thing when I was talking to the doctor, like, yeah, I know what you're saying, but like my grandmother used to, and then I went and broke down to this man why I didn't get these hives because I was over anxious or over stressed. It couldn't be that because I had a washer and dryer and I had a vacuum cleaner. My grandmother didn't have any of those. That was really my logic.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me because of all the things you said and like all the schoolish ways where we're told like, girl, calm down, take a breath. You'll be fine. Now everybody else, like, that matters today.
It matters still today. Wow. And hearing that is like, wow. For how many of us are walking around not realizing the things that our grandmothers used to cope with? That their coping mechanisms are in our DNA, and we think this shit is normal, and it's not normal, you know, like waking up and you can't sleep because my chest is literally like pounding, and I'm in the bed, like about to go to sleep.
Right. Nothing happened right before. Then you feel like, okay, as you said, I must be broken. You know, then there's also the sense of like, okay, I know for me, I'm like, okay, is this going to affect what I'm going to get done tomorrow? Because I'm going to need a day off. Like all of these things that we navigate as you and I were just talking about before we started recording, as we decolonize ourselves.
Yeah.
That's why it's getting free, how she got free, because it's decolonizing all the bits and pieces, which doesn't mean tucking anything away. Because as you said, you embody like I embody. And a lot of it is just bunched in trauma, and it shows up in our relationships with our bodies, our children, if we have them, each other. That's why sisterhood is so important. Like you and I have been working together since, I mean, it was like 7 minutes after we met each other. We were on Skype like, let's write a book. Okay. Basically, Maki daughter's like, but I'm going to Jamaica. Okay, bitch, write it there. Okay. All right. But we should get it out in the next like 45 days because then I'm moving. Okay. And we did it. And it did great. And it's exactly what we're working off of however many years later. Yeah,
exactly what we're working off of. It's the work. And it's so now, you know, I love human design, right?
Yes. And I hope that will be integrated. Of course it will, because it's all you in the podcast.
Yeah, help it. But I was looking at my chart, and I think I ran yours. Anyway, there's this a connector that I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an intimacy connector, which means like one of my main things is I have to have intimate relationships with people.
Okay.
It's not sexual necessarily.
That's where my mind went. I was like, what is the intimacy?
Well, I mean,
okay, go ahead.
If you're a big old fine black man, you single. I don't know. But
okay, focus. Okay. Yes.
But in all relationships, if I can't find that thing with you, then we don't have a relationship. So, and then once I find that thing, then I want to produce something. So if it's a man, I want to, let's get it in. And then,
let's do the production process, right?
Yes, let's have a baby. So in our case, it was like we've had this strong sisterhood connection immediately.
Oh my God.
And then it was like, okay, let's make a book. Like, what can we do? Like, okay. And that energy of like, okay, we got to do something. I got to have something that says, this is Akilah and Katrina. Like,
and we did it despite so many things going on. I was in parts of Jamaica where the Wi-Fi was really bad, and we're just like, I was like, okay, I'm just putting in my little note thing.
So, sis, remember we did our live, the first video. I don't know if you remember the first video we did, and I got bubble guts. You remember that? And
What? No.
You don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
Get that. We did our first video thing. I don't know if we recorded it or if it was live. All I know is I got bubble guts.
I do remember that because I was in Kingston. Yes, and we were staying in that tiny ass room in Mona. Wow, I do remember that.
And I dipped out on you, and I was like, I walked off and came back, and then I just sat down like nothing happened. And then afterwards, I was like, yo, I got bubble guts so bad.
We worked it out though, but oh my gosh, now you're making me want to go back and look at footage because I know I got it from that time. Just like we did so much, so gangster. Then we wrote about this place and then ended up doing the retreat. Y'all don't even know because this is like a whole new set of people probably, right? Like maybe only 4 people listening to this might know that we ended up doing a whole retreat in Jamaica, in the mountains, in Oche, as a result of that, because the story of the primary person in there, Lena, so many of the women who read it were like, we want to do that journey. Like, I know y'all made that up, but we want to do that. And we did it.
Yeah, we manifested that bitch. Like, we really did. And your leadership, like, you are such a and I love it. Oh my God. Because I'm game, but you're not just game, you done, nigga. Like, we doing it.
I do get real excited. I'm like, it can happen. Watch. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And because I'm always like, all right. And we made that thing.
Sure enough.
And you guys were just I remember you were just in starting the unschooling. It was still unschooling before it was
like homeschooling was in the mix a lot, right? Like school at home. Yep.
Yeah.
So y'all just starting to get, Yeah.
And then you guys you went to Jamaica. I remember that.
Yeah.
And you guys were still kind of figuring that piece out of where to live and all. I remember the dark room with the little lights. And I remember that. I remember the little dark room closet he was in. And I remember. And we were still living in our townhouse, and things were still kind of weird for me with the relationship or whatever. But I remember we both were just like, but this has to happen. And we hosted these videos and sessions, and we put this amazing, or maybe Chris did, we did, I don't know, but we put this amazing website together for the retreat, and we just used the energy that was in us regardless of resources. It was resources didn't matter. We just
irregardless. So we're gonna use the made up word irregardless.
Put that bitch together and was like, let's do it. And we did.
We did. And it was wonderful. Like, everybody who was a part of that experience was so much richer as a result of it. And the experience was so much richer because of everybody who was involved. Because we had a very particular idea about, again, with how we did the business structure, we lived this thing because we had a particular idea of like how many people would be ideal, But as the process progressed, like we really we're like, okay, cool. Let's see what this is. The same stuff we talk about in unschooling, emergent structure, instead of this predetermined thing that you try to contort into or feel shame or blame about not accomplishing. It's the allowance of that emergent process. And then you bring structure to what emerges, which is exactly what we did.
Yes. You know, that is you're so brilliant with your words, girl. I love how you be putting stuff. Girl, I bet you be in Chris Ed just whispering all these.
That's why we love each other, because this is how we feel about each other all the time. I'm like, did you hear what Katrina said? Be quiet, because she's gonna say it again. Like, this is how we actually.
Yes. What you just said, all that beautiful shit you just said. That's how I started my business again November 30th, and that's exactly my business model. It's just like what feels right. And because I know how to mix structure, I trust myself that I'm gonna put structure around the shit. Like,
yes.
Whereas before I was in panic mode, like, oh fuck, I gotta put this shit together first.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no. This I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. This is, I know how it's supposed to look and feel and all that, like you just said.
Yeah.
And then knowing that I'll build structure around that.
Yes.
And that's exactly. Wow, that's again, whoever's listening to the podcast, I hope the intention is rather that they will get out of that's what we want them to understand about what freedom is, to trust yourself and know that like along the way, someone's going to come by like a Akilah and put words to what you're feeling that you don't know what the fuck it is, but you know how to say these beautiful ass sentences, and you'd be like, that's it.
Yes.
And then I come along with a goddamn hammer and nails, like, okay, now we're gonna put this
with
in.
the 4-part layout that makes exact sense for where you are in your process now, that you don't need to overthink, because she already did that and then came back to exactly what you needed and then laid the shit out. And then because you're like nerdy math, but also creative, it is going to come together in a way where you're like, oh, this is not intimidating. I do not have to be a strategist because she's already that. And I could just be myself because she's like hella that. This is what How She Got Free was, is, and continues to be, which is why.
Why we're here. Another point, like one of our dear friends, and she was a participant in our podcast. And Loria, I'll say that Loria. One of the things that she says, she loves you. And
I love her too.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And on her journey, hey Loria, if you listening, she always talks a lot about, like, first of all, how the experience with the retreat was like her best ever. But I happen to know her. She and I have become friends over the last maybe year or so. And I know her walk as like a coach and the things that she's doing. And, and a lot of the time she pokes me and she's like, Katrina, you need to be, and I kind of be like, I know, sis, but it's that thing where, like, just for more context, she's like, you need to be out there. Where's your podcast? Where's your that? Where's your that? And I know that she may not know certain elements and details of things that we talk about. So I'm like, I know. But I bring that up to say that, like, as people listen, the point of, like, what you just said, what we just talked about, and for our sisters that are listening, is like, when you have discovered your uniqueness and your, like, your who you are-ness, it comes with like a feeling of, like, the freedom feels like you don't have to feel like you gotta prove yourself to anyone at any particular time, and sometimes liberation looks a little like, where are you going? What are you doing? Like, what is it? And it's like, I'm good. Like, I know, like, I know I have to pay attention to this right now, like, meaning like my personal life, and because my life is my work, is everything. And so I have to pay attention to this thing, and I have to pay attention to that. And all of that makes sense, and all of that works. And so I want people to feel like, all of who you are and all the elements that make up like your life matters.
Yes.
And we're not about teaching people or implying that people should pose or hurry up and put out a product or hurry up and prove to the world who you are. If who you are as you listen to this podcast, and continue with like your work and any work that this podcast may produce, if the only thing you get out of it is that the life that you live is actually okay, if that means, like I'm good here and this is what it is, then good. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Or maybe you may get the point of realizing that, and this part was scary for me, Akilah, like, oh shit, this relationship ain't it. That was what I got out of our work together, and that shit was scary. So you might whatever you get out of it, it's supposed to be for you. And I don't know what that's supposed to look like for anyone.
That's right. Nor do you pretend to, which is what I love about you, because we're not, that's not what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want it to be? What is it for you? If you love being a single woman or mother or married woman or man or whatever your thing is, or if you want to start a business and if you want to have a platform, or if you just want to have a farm and be in a corner somewhere tilling some land, or if whatever it is, the goal is just that you take off anything that's prohibiting you from having that experience of who you are and being able to name all the things that I think it's important that you know who you are and know the book of you. Like no one should be able to read your book about you better than yourself. So like, let's know that you have had an issue with anxiety or depression or let's name the fact that, you are hyper, if that's what you are, and be okay with it and know therefore what environments you should be in and what places you shouldn't be in and knowing, really knowing those things. And it's not bad to name a thing. Like Iyanla Van said, call a thing a thing. Like it's not bad to name the thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to dissipate because you everything in your life everything about you isn't rosy,
Right.
But all of those things aren't bad either. They just are, they just are. And so I want this podcast and this experience that we get to share with people and the honor that I have to be able to share this with your audience that's going to become part of my family now and more people that will
beyond. Yes.
I just want people to know that we're not telling you who you are. I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be, I don't know what your stuff is, but I do know what stuff is. You know what I'm saying? I do know.
I'll put that at the beginning. Say that again.
I know what your stuff is, but I know what stuff is. I know what stuff is. And I just, we want you to unpack it. Open that bag up and you ain't got to pick it out. Don't be neat about it.
Dump it out. Yes.
So we can look at it all and be like, yes, this is all the stuff.
Yes.
And now the stuff that was never yours to begin with.
That's right.
Get rid of it, burn it. And the stuff that is yours, what do you want to keep?
Exactly. All of that. Because when we talk about using this, I keep the word, you say machete, right? Because everybody, we say machete, but like.
I want to say it like you know.
Machete. Machete. Like, I'm like, machete. Yes, that is exactly how it's spelled, actually. So like when you're doing that, I feel like there's a stage in the journey and a part of, again, as Black women, many times, not all the time, a part of our inheritance is the knowledge that we're going to do that chop, or we're going to chop, chop down the bushes and try to get to a clear path. But sometimes you don't need to chop. Like I remember it was like a very public post when I realized, because I remember ETL messaged me and said something. Shout out to ETL McVeigh, Smell Good Spa.
I got that on right now.
Listen, I know. Where's my incense? I got one right over here. I keep them close. Where she said, I was saying, I blogged and said that I realized that warrior woman, that was something that I was like, I loved it. I felt really connected to it. But at a certain point, I didn't. It was like, I don't want to be always prepared for war. That doesn't feel good to my nervous system. And I didn't even know that. So then when I recognized that, it was like, oh, so then what if I wasn't a warrior? Does that mean that I'm a coward? No, then what does it mean? So then that was a whole unraveling, a whole deschooling, that my sense of power was not about this like forever sustained fierceness. I didn't want to be that. I'm also really soft. I'm also really aloof. I'm a lot of things that are not productive and assertive and useful, you know? And so that is what I think too is such an important part of how you share what you share, because it isn't like this shiny Katrina show. Look at all I've accomplished. I'll never forget. You said that at one point. It's like, I'm not trying to make this the Katrina show. I don't even, a couple of different things. One of them was a conference where you literally got like a bunch of awards and you're like, it doesn't be the Katrina show. I was like, that's hilarious. It totally is. And then it was something else we were doing. And you're like, well, I don't want to make this the Katrina show. I'm like, yeah, but everything you're saying is like the foundation of what we're talking about. But what's great about the Katrina show is that it's not a shiny, puppeteered, curated experience.
Yeah.
It's Katrina after she's been with her daughter dealing with hair stuff, making sure that we get this done this weekend because our schedules are crazy a little bit sometimes, but we also make time. Like you're getting the real person who then you might see her on another platform and be like, oh my God, I feel like I know her because then I saw her when she was all like extra, and then she was talking about business shit that made me feel like, you're going to get all of those things. Like this one woman show, that's what I keep calling it. That's not what it is, I guess. But I think of it like if Katrina had this one woman show and it was on Broadway or wherever, and she did it like 3 times a year. And she just sat there like in a comfy ass chair and talked to us. Then we got little sceneries from different like scenarios from different things happening in your life. Then, you know, like that's how I see How She Got Free. That's how I see the podcast. So I'm so excited for y'all to like, where's my camera? Boom. I'm so excited for y'all to connect with Katrina. Right now, you can tell us right now for us to stay involved. How do we do that? Where do we follow you?
Yeah, follow the podcast on Instagram at How She Got Free. So right on Instagram, How She Got Free. And on Facebook, the community is How We Got Free podcast community.
Yes.
Instagram page is How She Got Free. Instagram is specific to the podcast. The community is broader, meaning it's more inviting for everyone. A broader conversation of how we all get free. So that's why it's 2 different names. So How She Got Free on Instagram, How We Got Free on Facebook.
Yes. And we'll make sure to drop that in show notes. That'll also be here in the description if you happen to be watching one of the clips from the video. Yes, Katrina, thank you so much for making time for us to do this, to have this conversation, to get people as hype as I am about How She Got Free podcast. You're welcome. For those of you who I'm introducing Katrina to, you're welcome. And for everybody else, we've been now.
Okay. Get into it.
Love you, sis. Thank you.
I love you. Thank you.
Sunshine.